You are watching a 16-year-old destroy professional defenders who have been playing football longer than he has been alive. You watch it, and you feel something strange. Not just admiration, something closer to disbelief. Because your brain keeps asking the same quiet question. How is that even possible? That question is worth taking seriously, not because Lamine Yamal is special in some vague feel-good sense, but because science has a very specific, very unsettling answer. And once you understand it, you will never look at talent the same way again. Let's start with something your brain does every single time you watch him play. Your mirror neurons fire. These are clusters of neurons discovered in the 1990s by Italian neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolatti while studying macaque monkeys at the University of Parma. What Rizzolatti found was that the same neurons that fire when a monkey performs an action also fire when it simply watches another monkey perform that same action. Your brain, when it watches Yamal dribble at speed, partially simulates the movement itself. You feel the skill. You don't just observe it. And that simulation is what triggers the disbelief, because your brain knows deep down that it could never do what it just simulated. But here's where it gets strange. Yamal's brain doesn't experience what yours does when he plays. His brain, at the moment of a dribble, is operating in a mode that researchers call automaticity. It is a state where complex actions no longer require conscious decision-making. The movement happens before the thought. And reaching that state in football requires something that most people fundamentally misunderstand. It is not talent, not in the way you think. And in 1993, psychologist Anders Ericsson published what would become one of the most influential studies in cognitive science. He examined violinists at the Berlin Academy of Music and divided them into 3 groups based on skill level. What he found shook the assumptions of his entire field. The factor that most accurately predicted excellence was not innate ability. It was the number of hours spent in what Ericsson called deliberate practice. Not casual repetition, not fun training. A very specific kind of high focus, high feedback, discomfort-inducing repetition aimed at the edge of current ability. Elite violinists had accumulated around 10,000 hours by age 20. The merely good ones had not. Yamal was born on July 16, 2007. He joined La Masia, Barcelona's academy, at age 7. That means from the moment he could barely read, his brain was being systematically rewired by deliberate repetition. By the time he stepped onto a professional pitch at 15, his neural pathways for football had been carved so deep, so repeatedly, that the decisions happening in fractions of a second were no longer decisions at all. They were reflexes. Expensive, painstakingly built reflexes. This is what your brain misreads as genius. You see the output, the feint, the acceleration, the perfectly weighted pass. You do not see the 9 years of neurological construction that made it look effortless. And because you do not see the process, your brain labels the result as something magical, something he was born with. He was not born with it. Yep, but he was born at the right time. There is a concept in developmental psychology called the critical period. It refers to a window early in life when the brain is dramatically more plastic, more changeable, more willing to reorganize itself in response to experience. For motor skills, this window is most open between the ages of roughly 5 and 12. During this window, myelin, the fatty sheath that insulates nerve fibers and makes signals travel faster, is laid down at an accelerated rate in response to repeated movement patterns. The more you practice a complex movement during this window, the faster your neural signals travel for that movement, permanently. Yamal entered La Masia at the peak of this window. His brain was not special. It was simply available at precisely the right developmental moment to be shaped by an elite environment. But here is the part that almost no one talks about. Deliberate practice alone does not explain what Yamal does on a pitch, because football is not a closed skill. A violinist plays the same notes, a gymnast executes the same routine. Yamal, every single second of every match, is making decisions